it's all about destruction and the things you do in pain.
Live from the Alex Duffy Studios in sunny Santa Monica, California, it's the Alex Duffy Show, starring Alex Duffy, with this week's special guest, Lord Carrett. And now, a man who's never been mistaken for a vegetable, Alex Duffy!
Life, it's all about you, it's all about me. We're all that we have, and all we foresee. So give it your best shot, it's all that you got. Might not be a lot, but that's all there is to life.
Missed the electric guitar, Alex.
Oh,
it's good to have it back.
It is back. Yes, and we're back.
Back with a vengeance.
Back.
Back with a bullet.
Oh, these. Oh, yes, that would be good.
Yeah, that's good. That sounded great, Alex.
All right. Hey, folks. It is November 4th, Election Day. I didn't vote. 2003. I am Alex Duffy, and Steve Lyon is.
The show.
And we have a great show tonight and a very, very funny, well-traveled comedian with many stories. And, by the way, this is our first night in studio version 3.0.
Which is why we're starting late. Everything looks like crap and sounds like shit, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it only gets better from here.
Right. Well, we hope.
Of course. And to kick it off, we have a very funny man. But before we bring him on, I do want to say, Steve,
Alex?
you heard about the Reagans, the show that was taken off.
They yanked it. Well, they're actually they're moving it to
Showtime.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I don't know. They say it was like a right-wing censorship job or something like that.
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
It seems kind of like that.
They bowed to pressure.
If there was a show called The Clintons, do you think they would have pulled it?
Probably not.
No. You know, I don't know. I'm just saying, folks. I'm just saying.
You're just saying.
Just saying. Well, I want to get right to our guest because he has a lot of experience and many tales to tell. And in fact, I had to write it all down. He's done so much. I had to write it all down.
Are you going to go through the whole laundry list of everything he's done since he was 2 years old, Alex?
It's too much. But this is the man whose tagline is "Heads will roll with laughter."
Ah.
The one.
I get it.
The only. Lord Carrett.
Yeah, all right.
Hey, thanks.
Nice
Appreciate you having me on.
Well, of course, yeah. And you have the whole rockabilly thing going.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us something about that?
Well, I guess I get compared to Brian Setzer a lot, and he's really the reason that I have the rockabilly style, because until the Stray Cats came out, I didn't have a definition for rockabilly. I didn't know that term. But that's what I was into all along. Like, the first record I ever had was a hand-me-down 45 from my sister, Roy Orbison's Pretty Woman, a rockabilly classic.
Right.
So Stray Cats came out, and it was like, wow, this is what I like more than anything. And so I definitely explored that style of music and kind of adopted that style of dress.
But you were one of the first comics, if not the first, to go out dressing up as a rock star anyway, even though you weren't.
Yeah, which was actually like a detour on the way to looking like this. I went to a friend of mine who was a hairdresser, and I said I wanted a pompadour. And she said, well, your hair is straight as a nail. You're going to have to perm it. So for a short period of time, I had a huge Robert Plant perm.
Oh, right.
I went in with a lot of hair and came out with a lot of hair. So I had like a little detour where I was wearing leather chaps and zebra pants under them, so it was just like crotch when I came out, and a leather jacket and long hair. And eventually I got back to what I was trying to do, which is this. And I think on my website I'm going to do a little how to do a pompadour page.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
No one teaches you how to do this. You have to figure it out totally for yourself.
You got it 2 inches high. That's pretty high.
And people are always amazed that it moves.
Yeah. And it's real hair. Yeah. Well, where were you born and where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Florida. My family's from Chicago area.
Right.
And they moved down there like as soon as I was old enough to travel, so Florida was all I knew.
And I didn't sick of the winters, or what was it?
What's that?
They got sick of the winters, or what was it?
Actually, my dad was an engineer, and he designed tractors that went down and pulled ore out of mines. He made a really good living at that, bought a bar in Florida, and just basically kicked back the rest of his life.
And that was the bar where you first heard dirty jokes.
Yes. Yeah.
It was all downhill from there.
While you were going to Catholic school.
Right.
Tell us about that.
So I would go to Catholic school during the day and hang out with priests, nuns, and, other altar boys. I was an altar boy.
Me too.
Yeah. And at night, I'd be at my dad's bar hanging out with convicted felons.
Yeah.
And really were convicted felons. One time my dad was dragged down to the police station and beat with a Venetian blind cord trying to figure out what he knew about this guy's disappearance. But it was just guys that were hanging out in the bar that were involved in it, you know?
Oh, wow.
So it even wound up in True Detective. So it was like a seedy little, cool, right on the outskirts of town type of bar.
Right.
And I would take the jokes that I learned in the bar, clean them up just enough to not get expelled, and tell them at school. So it was really popular because I had adult jokes. Everybody else was doing,
How would you give us an
Knock
example of a
knock
joke
jokes,
that
and
you
you're
cleaned
actually
up?
doing
Or if you can even remember back that far.
Boy, some of the jokes I hear now on stage, I'll hear comics telling the jokes now, and it's like, man, I could tell that joke better when I was 4. The old joke about the rooster, the guy buys one rooster to take care of all of his hens, and the guy who sells them assures him that he'll be up to the job, and sure enough, the rooster's up to the job. He goes after everything that moves after he's done with the chickens.
Right.
And the farmer keeps telling him, you better take it easy or you're going to kill yourself. And he doesn't care. He's after anything that moves. And finally, one day, the farmer sees the rooster laying in the field, and his legs are up in the air, and buzzards are circling. And he comes up to the rooster. He goes, "See, I told you if you kept it up, you're going to kill yourself." The rooster goes, "Shh, they're coming closer." And that was one of the first jokes I ever learned. And so I would gravitate toward the ones that, even if I did get overheard, I wouldn't get in that much trouble.
Right.
And it also taught me how to insult people gently, because I was around adults.
Right.
And when you're a kid in a bar, you have to defend your right to be there. So
I can insult me, but gently.
Oh, hold off on the gently. Just insult the hell out of it. Be merciless.
Well, it's kind of hard to do it just out of context.
Okay, okay.
In my show, there's something about me that people want to heckle me. I think I'm confident and slick, and they want to see if there's a chink in the armor. So I usually get heckled at least once a show.
That's where you can do the insult.
Yeah, and I've been doing it long enough that I've written just reams of that sort of stuff. But I always try to tailor-make it to that guy.
Now, Lord, how did you come up with the name, or how did your parents name you Lord?
It's a last name from my mother's side of the family. And the idea was to call me Lore. But when you're called Lore, invariably the next question is that short for something? You wind up being Lord anyway. So I went to Catholic school named Lord. Of course, the nuns called me Lore.
Of course, they had to.
Yeah, and it was quite an upbringing.
Put that on the chalkboard, Lord.
Yeah, and then when I moved to San Francisco, all of a sudden there was a local DJ that was Lord Martine. I was like, you know what? You didn't get your ass kicked in the 4th grade. You can't just take the name. So.
Poser.
Yep.
Now before we go any further, let's do a website shout out for you.
Oh, great.
We do have your CD, and the cool thing about your CD is it is totally unedited. It's one show where you did basically where you're at now in 2002 at least, or where you were last year.
Right.
And it's all your best bits, and it's one show, one take, no fake laughter.
That's right. No, nothing taken out except for a heckler actually is ejected in the course of the show.
Okay.
I mean, it's the real deal. And another thing about my style is that I'm kind of a recovery artist, like Carson was. You know how when a joke would fail, the next thing Carson said would get enough of a joke to compensate for the failure of the last one, and put him right back on track. So I really was influenced by Carson. I think any comic my age was.
Right.
And so I want a certain percentage of the jokes to fail, so I can use those Plan B lines.
Right.
They're part of the act. They're just kind of floating around. It's kind of like I have a haunted house, and I'm guiding people through it, and I can move the goblin around different corners. And it's like I could have the haunted house without the goblin, but the goblin is my favorite part. Right. So, and that's why I'm the guy to do Unsweetened, because I really don't need editing. If a joke fails, it works right into my plan.
Right. Now, it's also on XM satellite radio.
Yeah.
Now, how did you pull that off?
I did a show in Sacramento, a radio show, just as a guest, and made a friend of the DJ. And then she went to XM satellite radio, and I think she's moved on to a different job now, but she told her boss about me, and I sent them the CD, and they put it on.
So does XM just basically give you royalties every time you play it? Are you ASCAP BMI for that kind of thing? Oh, okay,
No.
okay.
Yeah. Right now, it's not even on a major label. It's just something I put out. But the idea is to get it on a major label and then do this idea for a tour that's all hush-hush.
somehow tied in.
Okay, I won't ask you about that. But I will ask you about your website. How did you put it together?
I had a girl email me. At first, I just had some little comedy.com.
And by the way, that website is lordoflaughs.com. Say it proudly.
Lordoflaughs.com.
And laughs spelled as God intended, Laughs.
Yes.
LA, 2 Fs and $, So anyway, I had just a purely functional free site. And a girl emailed me and said, hey, I design sites, and if you're interested in a freestanding site, let me know.
What's good about your site is it's very simple and easy to navigate, and it's chock full of information. You can't really walk away. I didn't have to go really anywhere else after I went to your website.
Good.
Sometimes I'm trying to do research on people before the show. It's like, I got to Google them and do this and this. It was like, this is easy.
Right.
You just made it easy. So people can walk away from that with a really good picture of who you are and the evolution of your career.
Oh, cool.
Which is great,
Yeah, and it's got stuff on there that I designed. Like I was a graphic artist before I became a comic.
Oh, wow.
So I designed the CD too. Pretty much every facet of it I did. And my dream was to design album covers for bands, and the first one I ever designed was mine. Because right after I graduated from college, I went off and became a comic, so I never really got a chance to one.
Where did you go to college?
It was actually a vocational school, a technical school, where they taught you everything you needed to become employed as an artist.
Yeah,
so you went
practical.
you went through pen and ink, you went through color and design, figure drawing, darkroom photography, 35 millimeter photography, and this was back in the day when you developed your own film in the darkroom and everything. I mean, and so I was obsolete for a number of years because I became a comic right after I left school, and then everything went computerized. Right. And I've only just learned Photoshop.
Well, it's more important actually to have the graphic design skills than actually the computer skills, because you can pick those up, but you can't get the eye that you had when you were younger.
And it's the exact same mindset. It's just layers of things. In the old days, it was layers of negatives, one on top of another, and that's basically what Photoshop is.
Now, Jerry Lewis was also listed as one of your influences, but not anymore.
Jerry Lewis?
Yeah. Or that was a joke?
It was kind of a joke.
Oh, okay.
Someone asked me what I thought was funny as a kid, and I said, I think I said Jerry Lewis, but I also thought farts were funny at that age. But I do like Jerry Lewis movies. How can you not?
Yeah, I've never seen any of the Dean Martin ones, though.
Really?
And they made so much money in those days, but I've never seen... They made 16 of them.
And what people don't know, Hal Wallace was the producer of their films, and he had done like The Maltese Falcon, and he did Casablanca. He had won all these Oscars and stuff, and then he's doing Martin and Lewis films, and then went on to Elvis movies. So
wow. Well, you followed the money trail, though. Kind of ended with Elvis at some point.
Yeah.
What is amazing with Elvis is that for the last 3 years, he's been the top dead earning celebrity.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
$40 million last year, and he didn't lift a finger.
Yeah, he had a hit in the last couple of years too. I mean, that's hard to pull off from the grave.
He did it from. Well, that's just because to show you that rockabilly is the
Yeah, I mean, it is the root of rock and roll. Everything, AC/DC, all has its root in like the blues and rockabilly, which rockabilly came about from white guys that were used to like gospel songs, trying to pull off the blues, and it just came out too twangy. And it's the blues, all the same songs, like Willie Dixon's "My Babe" is something that every rockabilly guy covered, but it's strictly blues, but doubles as rockabilly as soon as you put that twang in.
Now, there's a great story on your website, which we won't go into too much detail, but it's about one of your adventures in New York.
Oh.
Okay, where a friend of yours who had a certain habit, you went to Alphabet City, etc., and so forth. Were you actually staying in New York at that time, or were you just passing through, or what happened?
I was just passing through. The guy that I was on the road with was a heroin addict that had a lot of work still. He was a functional heroin addict.
What was his name?
Frankie Bastille.
When did he die?
He died about 6-7 years ago.
And was he always as a touring comic, a heroin addict?
Yeah.
Was he a skinny guy?
Kind of. Yeah. He kind of looked like a cross between Al Pacino and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he had the little blues whisker there, and he was pretty close to rock and roll himself. I mean, he'd do like a leather jacket and a T-shirt, kind of Ramonesy.
And how would he get on stage if he was all junked up, or it wouldn't matter, he was used to it, just like a guy
It was amazing to watch. The guy would sweat it out on stage, for one thing. The audience would give it up to him because he would literally be pouring sweat from the junk coming out of him.
Wow.
And he was a fabulous performer. Great writer, too, but he didn't limit himself to things he wrote. Which I found out later, and which pretty much ended our friendship.
He borrowed what was funny.
And, you know, I think that's part and parcel of being an addict, is you're going to steal eventually.
Right.
You know, whether it's a stereo or a joke.
What was your breakthrough year when you started making a living doing comedy? Or when you could stay on the road for long periods of time and not have to worry about it?
I lucked out. I got in with a company out of Louisville, Kentucky that was also booking for a company out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so they had all these one-nighters. And I started off doing things like Dothan, Alabama. You know, I would be like the third show to go through Dothan, Alabama. And they didn't know what the hell was going on. I'd come out, you know, with all that hair and zebra and leather jacket and a skull T-shirt. And they're like, what the?
I wrote this down. You told one of the greatest jokes ever in Dothan, Alabama to get their attention.
Yeah.
Can you tell us that joke?
Well, first of all, I started at a total disadvantage, what they did. And, of course, Dothan, what is it, the Red Tide? Is that the football team there?
Oh,
yeah.
Alabama Crimson Tide.
It's a Crimson Tide.
Yeah.
Part of Alabama as you can get.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dothan, like I said, maybe had 2 or 3 shows before ours. And I'm the first act. And the DJ plays Harry Chapin's Taxi. That's like a 7-minute song of Love Lost.
Right.
And then brings me up. It's like the worst lead-in ever. You know, everybody at the bar is like crying over the one that got away. And then I hit the stage, rock and roll. And they're just like, snap, you know, neck snapping.
And this is the pre-Rockabilly days, the Robert Plant.
Right. Yeah, so I hit the stage, and man, they're not buying it for a minute. They just look at me and hate me immediately. And I'm you know, I never give up. I just pound them because I have the saves and the nasty things to say to them. So it's really, the only thing that hurts me is apathy. If they hate me, I'm going to eventually do well. If they love me, I'm going to do well.
Right,
but if they're just like ignoring me, I'm dead in the water. You know?
Right.
So I go out and I'm just after them. And finally, I just said, you know, I didn't want to mention this, but Bear Bryant blew my dad. And I'll tell you, all the conversation stopped. Yes, it was just like the needle across the record, and all of a sudden I had everybody's attention. Of course, they were focusing hatred at me.
Right.
But I had all their attention and went on to actually close out pretty well.
Oh,
you know, once they were listening, I did okay, you know. And I was working with Vic Henley, and I had forgotten the story. He reminded me of it. He said it was one of the funniest things he ever saw. I do remember he almost fell out of the chair when I said that.
It's like throwing a grenade in a room like that. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
When you're on the road, and this is something now that we've talked with quite a bit of road comedians, when you're on the road and you get sick, do you have health insurance, or what do you do? And what would be your health plan if you had one?
My health plan is basically having a dog lick it. And if that don't work, I don't even have a plan B. So I try to take care of myself. I mean, pretty healthy guy. I mean, I don't really work out or anything. But, and I'm at the age where I don't want to go to the doctor, really.
Right.
Because when I go, I get the real thorough exam.
Right.
Last time I went, the doctor put a camera in my rectum.
Oh my God! Is it an internet cam or?
No, it wasn't part of any procedure. He just suspected that his nurse was stealing from him.
Right.
You lay there and pretend you're sleeping. We're going to catch this
bitch. Now, when you're on the road, do you ever couch surf? And do you have any thoughts on couch surfing?
Well, I tell people...
Steve has a great couch surfing story.
Oh.
You may not tell it.
Oh, please do.
No, it's way too long. It's way too long. It's not. It's only funny if it's told over the next like half an hour. So I'm not gonna burden you guys with it.
Well, I always invite people that have caught my show. During the course of the show, I invite them to, if they're ever in Los Angeles, they're more than welcome to couch surf at my place.
Right.
But I got to warn you, I'm a sleep fucker. And you must never wake a sleep fucker. So if I start doing you, just let me finish and I'll go back to bed.
I would imagine that would keep most people off your couch.
Yeah. Comics never want to stay at my place. And that's pretty much part of the makeup of a comic, is looking for a couch. You know?
Right.
But I'm kind of the anti-Newton. You know, I'm polished, I'm Vegas-y, and I'm mean to my audience when they're there. But once the show's over, I genuinely appreciate them. Right. Whereas I think it's totally the opposite with Mr. Newton. He's on stage, hey, you're a beautiful crowd, and he leaves, and you come up to him, he'll probably run down the hallway to get away from you. You know?
Or to stick his entourage on you.
Yeah. But I'm more than happy to hang out after the show and talk to people.
Right.
That's cool.
A lot of my friends have started out as just people that came to the show and have kept in touch through the website. It's the funny thing about the internet. You can actually...
you make a real community there.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And you can build a following that way. I mean, I'll make like a little e-flyer and send it out when I'm appearing in a town where I have enough people on the list to make that worthwhile.
You're actually quite a number of places. I mean, your schedule looks pretty booked in advance.
Yeah, especially this time of the year. Summer is always hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But this time of the year is when it starts to pick up. I'm a regular guest on the Bob and Tom Radio Network, which is mostly in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Man, Bob and Tom have pretty much kept me in the business.
They keep a lot of comedians in the business too. I mean, they really support people well.
Now, I haven't heard of Bob and Tom until I looked at your website. What is Bob and Tom, and what's your involvement with it?
Well, it's a syndicated radio program, and they have sometimes as many as 3 comics in a morning. Usually what I do is I'll come in on a Tuesday and I'll have the whole day to myself. So I'll be on for like 3 hours, and you're reaching more people than you'd reach on the Tonight Show in terms of 150 markets, however many listeners.
Are Bob and Tom around? Are they around when they do this, or
are they?
They're in the studio with you,
right?
You're their guest,
right? You come in and just do like we're doing.
I think I heard them up in Northern California actually when I was up in Wairika.
Yep, Redding has it.
Yeah, I think I heard it through Redding.
Yeah, so in those markets, like I'll go to some weird little town like Redding and draw 300 people to it.
Because everybody knows you from the show.
Right.
That's cool.
Well, that's awesome.
And you know, they've been nice enough to keep me on for 3 hours at a clip. I've done it 10 times, so that's 30 hours.
Wow. That's
a
awesome.
market like Redding has come to know me.
You just keep the funny going. That's the thing.
Yeah, and they're funny. I mean, you can go in there with something halfway fleshed out, and Chick will come up with a tag for you. You know?
Right. Well, there was like a touring acoustic guitar singer comedian, and they had him on the show for like an hour. And it wasn't just he was funny. They were just. That's not the only time I ever heard the show, but I was coming back down from there.
Yeah.
That's when I heard it. Yeah. So that's
they are flat out the best at that format of just sitting around and talking.
And I love how they always laugh in the background too.
Oh yeah,
get that little,
they are good laughing.
They're really good at that, supporting whoever's on. It's really cool.
Yeah, and they get Sandra Bullock and movie stars.
Yeah.
Last time I was there, the very next day, Cheap Trick was coming in.
Oh.
And, I'm not just into rockabilly. Cheap Trick ruled the world when I was in high school. So I was whining. I can never be in here when Cheap Trick's in. They said, just come back tomorrow. Stop bellyaching. So I came back the next day, and they have a separate studio that they record.
Where's their studio?
It's in. They don't like to say, but it's in Indianapolis, in an underground bunker. Anyway, so they have this one studio that's in the station that they started out in, and all the syndication sprung from. And then they have a separate studio because they have a band too. So they'll record songs and albums and little snippets and things for their show.
Right.
And they'll also record someone like Cheap Trick when they come in. So we all go over there to get ready for Cheap Trick's arrival. And Bob gets caught in traffic. So Tom, I'd just been on the show the day before, he says, do you have anything left? I said, sure. And I sit down, and before we even have a chance for me to fill time, in walks Rick Nielsen and sits down.
Wow.
So I'm as close to him as I am to you. And I am just like, I could not get the smile off of my face. One of those times when you're just like grinning like a...
That's cool.
Yeah, I was grinning like an idiot. And he was hilarious, of course.
Oh, yeah.
The whole band was funny. Everybody was there but the drummer. And I said to Rick, how come the drummer is always the first to die when he gets to sleep in?
Right.
And Rick turns to Robin and goes, hey, Robin, how come? And I was like, hey, Rick, stealing my joke. That's great.
These are the original members, too, at this point. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
And the bass player is very quiet. The funniest thing that happened is at one point they talked to Robin, the singer, and Rick, the guitarist, forever. And finally she turns to Christy, one of the other crew on Bob and Tom. She turns to the bass player. She says, "Did they ever let you talk?" And he just goes. So even he was funny. Really great.
Tell us about being married and not being married.
Well,
I just recently got
Alex
married.
is going to take notes on this one.
Okay, well.
So how did it happen for a road comic like you that you fell in love and thought, I can handle a marriage while I'm on the road?
You know what it was? Is I knew my wife before I was a comic.
Okay.
So I knew that she loved me and, not this comic.
Right.
And definitely the love of my life. And it worked out to where I was on the road so much that I could live anywhere. Right. And I got in touch with her, and I wound up moving to Maryland, and Baltimore became one of my all-time best markets. I was the usual big fish in a small pond, and then I moved to San Francisco to try to recreate that. I mean, they were offering me radio shows and stuff like that. I didn't want to do it because all I ever wanted to be was a comic.
Right.
And I didn't want to get tied into radio. Now, I would kind of like to do a rockabilly radio show. You know, Little Steven has the garage thing sewn up, but rockabilly is wide open. And like I said, it's the root of everything. Everybody likes rockabilly for an hour.
Right.
So now I feel like I would maybe be interested in that. But at the time, I just went to San Francisco and tried to make it as a comic. And, you know, to limited success, I guess. Really, Bob and Tom has kept me in the game because those are the markets, 150 markets, I can actually draw a crowd in. Even though outside of those markets, I don't really have that kind of draw.
How long were you married, though?
I was married for 6 years before the ring toss.
And then just basically it was too much pressure, basically?
Yeah, you know, it's really a grind. It's hard to keep it together when you're on the road that much.
So then why?
And eventually Amanda left me and moved to Annapolis to be closer to the Navy.
Oh, she was in the Navy?
No.
That's the joke, Alex. There you go.
Well, then let me ask you a question. Why do you always flirt with lesbians?
Oh, because to me it's like hitting golf balls at the driving range. It's good practice, and there's no pressure.
Right. There you go.
That is good. Now, you did take quite a detour when you co-wrote the Austin Powers Operation Trivia CD-ROM game.
Yeah.
That was quite a departure from what you normally do. How did you get involved in that?
You know, one of my oldest friends, a guy I used to take on the road with me all the time, got the job as the head writer, and he couldn't flat out give me the job, but I submitted and I got the job. And at the time, I had just moved from the Bay Area, and I had to go right back, but there was no guarantee I was working up there that week.
Right.
So I had to leave on like Wednesday, and they weren't going to know until Friday if the game was a go. They were 90% sure, but there were a few things to fall in place with marketing and licensing and everything because it was Austin Powers.
Right.
So I just packed up my dog and everything I would need for 6 months, and I brought it with me to the gig, figuring I'll do the gig and turn around and come back with all the stuff if I don't have the job. And it went, and it was a blast. They had a great idea. They took a bunch of comics and made them write the trivia questions and stuff.
Wow.
Whereas before they always got comedy writers, and it's just a different sensibility. You know, comic cuts right to it.
Right.
And the game was really funny as a result. And,
cool.
It was really the first time that all that useless knowledge came in handy. You know? I mean, all of a sudden you're proud that you know Sheila E.'s last name. You know, because
what is Sheila E.'s last name?
Escovedo. And
Cool.
her brothers, or cousins rather, are in bands too.
All right.
One is Alejandro Escovedo, and the other is, I think, Xavier.
But you also worked on Codehead.
Yeah, a kid's game.
And that's also another writing job?
Yeah, that one was really hard because, you know, with Operation Trivia for Austin Powers, it was pop culture.
Right.
So absolutely anything that the average person would know you could go into. But then you start writing for like 12-year-old kids. There's a whole world of stuff that they've never even heard of.
What do they do?
Well, it's like an educational game, and they put together an icon. They choose eyes and noses and stuff and mouths, and they get this really funny-looking character. I don't know how they have the technology to do this, but like that, you've got your little person that answers questions for you.
Right.
And then as you play, it'll be like a question about history or science or whatever. And then we would get this just cold, impersonal bit of information, you know, about igneous rock or something, and then you'd have to write a joke about it. And
wow,
and you'd go, okay, igneous, Iggy Pop. Nope, too old for the kids. You know, they're not going to know Iggy Pop.
Right.
So many of the jokes were right out the window. Whereas with Austin Powers, almost anything went. You know?
Right.
It was a tough game.
Earn your pay on that
Did you
one.
look back in like your own childhood and things like that to get this, you know, to work right for kids, or?
And I went back to like books of riddles and things like that just to get the kid mindset, you know, because the things a kid thinks are funny are generally kind of goofy.
Like diarrhea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's one of the jokes that I came up with for that? What does a strawberry wear to bed? Jammies. You know? So that's what kids, you know, that's what you had to do, and it was such a departure from what you're used to doing.
Right,
you know?
right.
I got one of my favorite jokes out of it though, that I figured out why cats lick themselves so much.
Why?
They're delicious. I'm hooked. So yeah, and it's just trying to, I was trying to get adult things in there, so that like if the parent was watching, they would think, oh no, he's not going to say because they can, and that's my style of comedy too. I like to have an undercurrent, and I like to wind people up, and I like to lead them in this direction where they go, he's not going there, is he? And then make the sharp turn and pull them over there.
Well, talking more about your childhood and your family, you have a sister who's grown up to become super religious.
Yes.
When you say super religious, what do you mean by that?
I mean, she's got a cape with a crucifix on it.
Oh, wow.
Super religious.
That's pretty religious.
She's so religious, God actually spoke to her.
Oh,
he said,
he
does?
Oh, that's okay.
Well, to my sister, he said, I need my space. I know I said don't worship false gods, but you pray to anybody you want. I just need a minute to myself. Back off a little bit.
That's cool. Well, does she think that you're on the right path?
It's funny. You go through cycles with your family. Like at first, you're trying to be a comedian.
Right.
My brother is trying to be a comedian.
Right.
And then you get on TV, and their friends can actually tune in at 8 o'clock and see you. And then you're my brother the comedian.
Right.
Right.
And then that carries you for about 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And then it starts to like not be so novel anymore. And they see you're living out of a suitcase and you're not married, and it's just like, stop trying to be a comedian.
Right,
no, I'm trying again,
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, on your website you mentioned you have 4,000 records. Is that true?
I do.
All vinyl?
All vinyl.
Wow.
And I don't count the CDs. I have a lot of CDs too.
That's a
You
lot of
live in
vinyl.
LA somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So you basically have like this record room where you just can listen
You
to
know,
it?
what happened is I'm on the road so much. Like this time of the year, I'm on the road 3 weeks and back for 1. I'm basically a trucker hauling jokes.
Right.
And so I just downsized and downsized. It makes sense for me to have a roommate. I know it sounds like you're a loser if you're my age and you got a roommate, but it's like, why not cut my rent in half? I'm never there. I don't have cable because I'm never there to watch it.
What a great roommate you are, too.
I'm a great roommate.
Because you're never there, yeah.
So what I have now is I basically built this enormous bed out of records. They're modular crates. About 3 long is the length of a king-size bed. 2 high brings it up to about your waist. And all the records point out like in a kid's room when they have drawers under their bunk beds or something.
Right.
And so everywhere you go in my room, like horseshoe around this bed, you can pull out records.
Wow.
That's a lot of records.
Yeah, and there's also like storage underneath. So one time I was under there like trying to find some record that I knew was under there. My roommate looking for me. I said, I'm under the bed.
Nice.
There's a monster under here.
Wow. Well, we have to close.
All right.
But the thing is, you just let the world know. Once again, it is Lord of Laughs.
Lord of Laughs, LAUGHS.com.
And the CD, which we're going to show again to the world.
Have to
Yes.
spank the microphone some more.
Sorry about that. This is the CD. You can buy it from the website. Can they also get it on Amazon? Or where can they get it from?
ComedyHome.com, and there's a link to that from my site.
Awesome. All right then, Lord. Well, it was great having
Thank you very much for having me.
And folks, it is November 4th, 2000.
Hold on one second, Al.
Not yet. You got any final thoughts? This is your chance to have final thoughts.
My final thoughts?
The fake ending. That was the fake ending. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wasn't ready with the ending credits. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
You stumped me. I was like ready to punch out.
Where are you headed to next?
I am going next to, I think, Illinois.
Wow.
I got a week off, so I put all that stuff right on my mind. I was just in Alaska.
Oh, cool.
And I think the biggest laugh I got the whole time I was up there is I was walking across the parking lot and slid in the ice, fell, and hit the back of my head.
Oh, no.
And people were laughing too hard to help me up. And I just lay there thinking how rare it is that the thing that caused the injury is also the treatment for the injury. It's like, wow, I got ice on that right away. Talk about prompt medical attention.
Nice.
Everything is looking up.
Hey, they treat you right in Alaska.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Are you ready now, Steve?
I'm ready to go.
All righty then. Well, thanks again, Lord.
Thank you.
No, I love calling you Lord. It's so cool. It's just like, hey, Lord, I had to make the joke when I first wrote to you. I had to write something stupid like "Lord save me," or I forgot what I wrote or something.
And I'm sure you did.
I did.
Of course you did.
Won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz?
But then after like the second email, I thought everybody must do that.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's just like I can't do it. You know, so anyway. But I did put the Good Lord's website as a link, and then after a while I said, even that's corny. But I tried.
Well, that's why I did the heads will roll with laughter,
Yeah.
because every time they did an article about me, it was Lord of Laughs. That's why I called the website that, or it was King of Comedy. And so finally I said, okay, let's play into that. And I rented a king's robe and I think it's called a cravat.
Right.
And a crown.
And the picture's on the website.
Yeah, and there's a picture of me wearing that. And man, it got so much coverage when I played town.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it was definitely just, hey, give them what they need to do what they're going to do anyway.
Exactly,
you know?
exactly. And do it in style.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Lord. I appreciate it.
Thank
This
you.
is the real ending.
All right.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, folks. It is November 4th, 2003, The Alex Duffy Show. Good night.
Cool.
Yeah.